You've probably come across a post or two claiming they just don't make movies like this anymore, often highlighting some carefully composed and incredibly cinematic frame or clip from a movie. And these assertions often hinge on side-by-side comparisons, claiming movies have become too dark, color palettes have become too desaturated, and we just don't see blocking like this anymore. And honestly, I think in the vacuum that is cherry-picking certain examples and dissecting a movie frame by frame, you can find something to take issue with in any film.
Don't never sleep.
At the time of its release, Charles Laughton's The Night of the Hunter was seen as a choppily edited, foggy melodrama. This, obviously low budget. This, a fiasco with awful color.
Are you Johnny Logan?
That's the name, friend.
And this, incoherent garbage. But evaluating the merits of a film solely on whether you find it beautiful or not kind of misses the point. Films, regardless of time period, are not made for the sole purpose of being aesthetically pleasing.
This is the first of a series of motion pictures about motion pictures. How they began, how they are made, and the people who make and show them.
Take found footage style films.
This is my home, which I am leaving the comforts of for the weekend to explore the Blair Witch.
Their overall look may be a byproduct of budgetary constraints, but that's not always the case.
Go, 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 go!
Sometimes filming in a particular way can open a filmmaker up to new possibilities.
I fell in love with the Sony PD-150, with automatic focus, with 40-minute takes, lightweight, seeing exactly what you get, smaller crew. It was so fantastic.
Sometimes it's an artistic decision that's right for the particular story you're telling.
We are surrounded in this city by cameras. They're everywhere, and they're all these DV cameras, all types of them. I think it's beautiful for urban work. It has a grittiness about it that's magnificent for your city movie, really.
Yes, it's fun to examine particular frames or scenes you find cinematically beautiful, but sometimes looking bad is what makes something work.
I mean, the mistakes usually are the most interesting things. The water on the lens made this incredible image where the actor walks towards the water and he becomes more and more blurred. It was a mistake that you appropriate.
Sometimes it's these so-called mistakes that make a film truly beautiful. And so with this in mind, I want to take a look at a film that is perhaps my favorite example of this. Lars von Trier's 1996 film, Breaking the Waves, marked a distinct shift in the style of movies he had been making up to this point.
I'm going to see Europe again.
Starting with the first film in his Europe trilogy, von Trier had seemingly become obsessed with the visual design of the image, creating films that tended to favor the formal techniques of filmmaking over the actors and characters at the heart of their narratives.
Opfatter du skuespillere som blot udtryksrekvisitter?
I think he was more interested in the technical side of filmmaking. And I have a feeling that he also was a little bit afraid of the actors.
On the mental count of 10, you will be in Europa.
The final film in the trilogy even saw him experimenting with more surreal imagery, utilizing rear projection and carefully superimposing color images against those in black and white.
Marry me, please.
Yes.
However, a notable shift occurred when he began working on the 1994 miniseries The Kingdom.
Jeg kunne ikke se rigtig nogen mulighed for at fortsætte af det spor, som jeg havde tegnet med, eller som vi havde tegnet med forbrydelsens element og Europa. Det var ikke rigtig muligt. Det var ligesom opbrugt.
Here, he started to take a more naturalistic, documentary-like approach, relying on mostly handheld camera work that functioned in direct opposition to the production's narrative.
He was surrounded with all these fantastic actors, and he suddenly dared to talk to them.
Abandoning these more formal cinematic techniques in favor of character and story led von Trier and fellow Danish film director Thomas Vinterberg to create a manifesto, the Dogme 95 Manifesto, which in turn launched a filmmaking movement.
The idea was to put a mirror in front of it and say, listen, we can do it another way as well.
Yeah, instead of thinking, oh, if it doesn't look like Star Wars, then we can't make a film, and then, if that is the only thing that comes out of these, I think it's fantastic.
The Dogme cameraman, Mr. Dogme, Anthony Dogme Mantle.
While not officially a Dogme film, it was in this vein that von Trier began work on Breaking the Waves.
Yes. Make her laugh. Could you do that?
Stellan, make me laugh.
Modeling the film's protagonist best after the character Goldenheart from the children's book of the same name, he set out to create a movie with a self-sacrificial martyr at its center, not unlike René-Jean Falconetti's Joan of Arc and Dreyer's aptly named film. Indeed, Dreyer served as great inspiration to von Trier, who had used his cinematographer on his 2 prior films.
We're in my seat there, Henry. No, I play for you. Oh, okay.
En røvmytologisk alliance nu for.
Kaldet mig til profet for sit ansigt.
Steeping the film in religious dogma only served to underscore Dreyer's influence on the narrative. But von Trier's exploration of religion in Breaking the Waves is one of intense contradictions. The story hinges on the audience's belief in a miraculous outcome.
You're not going to die.
But in taking a more naturalistic cinematic approach, he ultimately leaves us questioning the spiritual nature of this film altogether.
Bess.
Are the events in this film divinely inspired or pure coincidence?
I think you've got yourself involved in something which is out of your control.
It is ultimately von Trier's restraint, both cinematically and narratively, that make this melodramatic narrative seem plausible, a restraint that is best represented in the film's stripped-down cinematography.
Sorry, yes, I just enjoyed doing it. Sorry.
We try to act as we know what we're doing, but sometimes we really don't know what we're doing. Do I make myself clear? Are there any questions? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Led by Robby Müller, Breaking the Waves cinematography lends an authenticity, a believability, to an otherwise wholly unbelievable film.
I love you so much.
While certainly known for his use of naturalistic lighting and ability to render the ordinary remarkable, these trademarks were far from emblematic of Müller as a cameraman.
I'm always trying to get night exteriors to look like Robby Müller did it, and I can never do it. I don't know how he did it. It looks like how it really looks. And back then, there's got to be a million lights on. He had a magic with it that I can't quite figure out. It's something to look for in his photography that he was a master at.
Having worked with a range of directors from Wim Wenders and Jim Jarmusch to Peter Bogdanovich and William Friedkin, what is perhaps most notable about Müller's work is his seeming refusal to rely on any cinematic hallmark at all.
And I have to first of all mention Robby Müller. Robby was the coolest camera assistant I've ever seen. He was able to roll a cigarette in his pocket in one hand while focusing. And Robby then shot my film, and it was the first time I had a DOP. Until then, I had shot all my films myself. And we hit it off really well. He was the first guy who actually set lights in my film and operated the camera much better than I ever did. Robby was a dream come true. We did the next 10 years every film together.
Hello, Robby Müller's machine. This is Jim Jarmusch calling.
He's like my family, my brother, my teacher, someone, I don't know. I wouldn't even be here without Robby Müller. I don't know how to explain it, but the guy is so important to me and in my life and taught me so many things. Why he even was shooting films with me, I don't know why, but I tricked him into it. I gave him some really good weed.
If one through line can be noted as evident throughout his body of work, it's knowing the difference between getting the perfect shot and getting the shot that's perfect for the story you're telling. For Breaking the Waves, this meant utilizing a documentary-like handheld camera and pans rather than the more traditional locked-off camera and shot-reverse shot that would have been in sync with the film's melodramatic narrative, but ultimately rendered it too suffocating and unbearable.
It works only because he is able to create a universe. It really needs the looseness and the direction, because it has to have a lot of life for you not to see the construction, because it is a construction in many ways. As I said to Lars, every scene is like the peak scene in a melodramatic film.
Again, very brutal style. It's also shot in a documentary manner.
And this pan.
It's unnerving. It's unnerving.
Shooting Breaking the Waves in this way removed the distance and artifice such traditional camera work would have created, making the characters' interactions all the more intimate and the story all the more believable.
Continuous filming, because it was a handheld camera. It was very free. You didn't have to hit a mark, you didn't have to repeat yourself. You could basically play the scene over and over in different ways. And he said, oh, it's fine, I'll just cut it together. And there are all sorts of crazy jump cuts in the movie, but it makes a coherent sense.
I love you. Far from his work on Europa, Breaking the Waves signaled a shift in von Trier's relationship with his actors, a shift that placed the honesty of the actors' performances, not the cinematic techniques, as the most important aspect of the film.
He said something really beautiful. He said that he wanted the machinery of the film to be as light as a feather, the technical side to be as light as a feather. And he also said things like, you know, I want you to make mistakes. In fact, it's good if you make mistakes. I mean, this is like opening a door for an actor. It's like letting them out of a prison, really.
It was von Trier's goal to maintain a looseness, a documentary closeness to the characters. The film needed to be as realistic as possible to make the construction behind it believable, which led to him placing the highest level of importance on the actors' freedom. This meant he often encouraged the actors to improvise.
I'd never had that freedom as an actor before. You don't have any marks to hit for focus. He doesn't mind if it's out of focus and it's shaking, it's all over the place. When Lars was happy with the scene, he'd say, okay, now throw the script away, and he'd just improvise. And it was nice to have that freedom.
This freedom extended to the way Müller chose to light the film, using 360-degree lighting to allow the actors to move and interact freely with one another.
Every corner where an actor will go to has a good lighting. And I don't like to restrict people with marks for lights and that. My main zeal is as the least interruptions as possible. Because Lars von Trier once said to me, I don't want to do more than 1 or 2 shots, because then the actors, start acting.
Kan jag inte få spela lite bara för min egen skull, så kan du klippa bort det sen?
Nej, ingen spil.
Even though the film's rapid editing made for relatively short shot lengths, the scenes themselves were often filmed in long, sustained takes to maintain momentum and spontaneity.
The way the film was shot was in long master shots, covering the whole scenes. So when the scene started, then the cameraman followed the scene all the way through, from different angles and so on. But they shot around 75,000 meters, which is a lot of footage. And of course, it was due to the Ebert that we were able to get through all this material so fast.
I know you love me.
It was important that once editor Anders Refn began his work on the film, that he maintained this prioritization of story and character over any conventional rules of editing.
I decided that we should cut emotionally. We shouldn't respect the rules of visual continuity in a traditional way. So we just, as soon as a scene lost in intensity and emotion, then we should cut whatever where they were in the continuous action in the scene.
Contrary to von Trier's prior films, their only goal when in the editor was to strengthen the intensity of the actors' performances, even at the expense of leaving mistakes in the final film.
Oh, and beautiful out of focus.
Yes, you like that, don't you?
Mm-hmm. I have forgotten this negative scratch. We found one, actually.
And put it in, of course.
Of course, it should be in there. All faults should be in the film. And that was something we liked too very much, this soft focus, you know, and then comes in focus.
Yeah.
So
it's a struggle as well. So technique struggling and people struggling.
Coming into scenes late and leaving early, utilizing jump cuts, out-of-focus shots, clips where the actors are looking into the lens, all this created for a more dynamic film. A film where maintaining the emotional intensity of the scene was more important than its visual continuity.
That's tough, that is. Completely tough. Tonight. Happy birthday, Jan.
Thank you.
While this unrestrained documentary-like style of shooting and editing conceals the film's artifice, rendering the melodramatic story more immediate and acceptable, von Trier still felt the film was too beautiful and wanted to further manipulate the image.
Thank you.
Shot on 35mm with spherical lenses, but framed for a 239 anamorphic release, Breaking the Waves features the unexpected juxtaposition of handheld, naturalistic camera work within a scope framing.
A discussion was whether we could take that to the big screen, to the CinemaScope format in the huge cinema.
Yeah. And normally, to get a beautiful picture, you frame the scope picture like this, so you have the face a little to the side, and the cross is here, and it looks into the image, and you get a very harmonic picture. But he decided to put the cross right between the eyes on everybody. So the camera was like this. When you saw the rushes, you felt embarrassed because you felt like you were staring at somebody in trouble. And that was very disturbing, and I really liked that.
Von Trier took this manipulation a step further by transferring the 35mm film negative to a standard definition D1 PAL videotape, not only imbuing the film with a video-like quality, but allowing him to desaturate the image and give the film a sepia tone. This degraded image was then transferred back to Super 35, where it was optically blown up for a 35mm anamorphic release.
Away with you! Stop all this racket outside the house of God.
Von Trier likens this process to laying a filter over the image, removing any slickness or glossiness, and rendering the story more real, acceptable, and palatable for the audience. And there is something about this that does bring you closer to the film. There's an added layer of honesty that's not immediately present in Von Trier's prior work.
Dear God, I pray that Joan gets better.
On paper, Breaking the Waves is a film that shouldn't work, and to some people, it probably still doesn't.
But he's also made films that I absolutely hate. For example, Breaking the Waves.
See, Lars von Trier is very interesting to me because I have a strange relationship with Lars von Trier's films. I hated Breaking the Waves.
At the film's release, some found the handheld camera work too nauseating, the editing too intense, the chapters too distracting, and the film's ambitious ending too cathartic.
Well, this is one of the more debatable scenes in the film.
And there were some discussions. I think the film has a happy ending.
Nevertheless, the film went on to win the Grand Prix at Cannes, earn Emily Watson a Best Actress nomination at the Academy Awards,
Emily Watson in Breaking the Waves,
and receive a spot in Roger Ebert and Martin Scorsese's top films of the 90s.
Thank you. Beautiful. And then we just do a close-up of Jan.
When discussing the film, Von Trier doesn't shy away from talking about the mistakes. Some a byproduct of the way the film was made, others, like the added film gate noise, a strategic addition in post.
I can hear the camera rolling.
Yeah, the camera roll, but that we put on afterwards, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we put in camera noise afterwards.
Okay.
We mixed in a lot of camera noise, especially in the close-up, very close-up.
Okay, works very well.
And it's ultimately these so-called mistakes that make this film truly beautiful. The story gains in authenticity, a painful closeness to the characters that would have been completely lost with a conventional filming style.
I've changed my mind. Why did I ask for that?
Breaking the Waves serves as an example of how, in degrading the image, a film can actually gain something more powerful. It highlights the advantage emotional connection can have over aesthetic beauty.
I think degradation is an aesthetic quality. Yeah, I think decomposition is a sign of beauty.
Ultimately, films are about telling stories, and storytelling doesn't always have to be conventionally beautiful to resonate with you in a meaningful way.
En het manier van vertellen, vergeet je dat, want je hebt geen mooie beelden nodig in die zin. Want beelden hoeven niet picobellen en ik hoef geen baardhaartjes scherp te hebben dan. Al die dingen vallen van je af. Je kan meer van afstand kijken, zoals je naar een schilderij kijkt. Je hoeft de details te zien, je ziet dan de grote opbouw.